Yeah, I know, there's like a million speed paint your miniatures videos on YouTube. Well, after this one, there's a million and one. But what really chaps my ass is that all these speed painting systems suck all the fun out of the painting process and it just blows. Why? Why are those my two choices? Why can't I choose between something other than suck and blow? Getting a new box of minis, whether it be for a miniature ward game, a board game, or a tabletop RPG, is kind of like giving yourself a box of work. At least that's how it's approached for most speed painting systems. You just streamline everything so you stick your head down and power through all the work. And when you're done, your miniature box is painted, and it was mostly miserable, and you don't want to do it again. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for that kind of miniature painting, but I tend to think it's pretty unhealthy when it comes to your actual enjoyment of the painting process, as well as actually improving your painting over time. I was sent a bunch of minis for one of my favorite board games of all time, Gloomhaven, and it's a game that my friends and I have spent a ton of hours playing. I want to paint them up quickly for our game, but I also want to have a relaxing, fun time while I do it. Seems simple enough, right? Let's walk through my process when I want to paint stuff fast, but also have some fun. After a quick black prime with a spray can, an airbrush, or even a brush-on primer, we're going to add some initial color to these models. For this step, I'm using contrast paints by Games Workshop, but you could just as easily use speed paints by the Army Painter, or even acrylics inks right out of the bottles like these ones. But with these, you want to make sure you thin them down a bit because they can be awfully potent right out of the bottle. I slap one color on the bottom half of the model, then a second color on the top half of the model. Then I kind of swish the brush around the midsection so the colors blend together a bit. This doesn't need to be perfect whatsoever. We just don't want a defined hard line where one of those colors starts and the other one stops. Since we're doing this step directly over a black primer, it's not going to have that much of an impact. So then the question is, why are we doing it? What this does is it sets initial shadow colors that aren't just black. So we get to add color depth in next to no time at all. And it makes all the future work that we're going to be doing easier, and the final product's going to look better with no extra time. I like to use nice, rich, saturated colors here. Nothing too bright with white pigment in it, and nothing too bland like grays and blacks. This is going to be our shadows, and that black primer will help make sure it stays dark. But certain colors like yellows tend to not look very good directly over black. In less than a minute, you'll have created interesting shadows for your entire model. What this means is we can spend the most of our time painting very efficiently. We can focus on those things that are the most fun to paint, as well as those things that make the biggest impact, so our models look coolest on the gaming table. As we dig into the meat and potatoes of the painting process, I want to discuss an important topic: time. If time is the only factor you care about, you can get minis painted pretty damn fast. But the trick is finding balance that makes you feel productive in how quickly you're getting things done, and the satisfaction you feel when looking at that final product. And this is something each of us needs to figure out on our own. That's not something I can answer for you. But if you're mindful of finding balance, you'll feel that you're working towards a greater goal, which makes the journey enjoyable. And that word, journey, is not something to take lightly. The people in my life that are the most enthusiastic about miniature painting are the ones that enjoy the journey. They're also the same people that continually improve, whether it's slowly or with big advancements, because they're embracing the journey and not trying to rush through it. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, time. So for me, I like to spend roughly 45 minutes or less per model. To me, I feel like this is the amount I can commit to enjoy the process, not rush through it, and still feel happy about the final product. And as you practice over time, a 1-hour paint job will soon only take you 45 minutes, or that 1-hour paint job will look much better than your 1-hour paint job from a couple of months ago. And as we bust out our paintbrush, like I said, you're gonna think that these shadows look like black, but that's only because your eye is not comparing them to something that's pure black. Once you start putting on your base layers, you'll realize that it actually melds together much easier than a pure black primer or base coat would. The part of miniature painting that takes up so much damn time and is always testing my patience is getting perfect base coats over each tiny surface, trying hard not to get that blue cloth onto the brown belts and so on. So we're just gonna skip that step. I'm not putting an all-over base coat over anything. I'm just working with what the model gives me. I'm putting the paint over the raised surfaces, over the details, over the larger shapes that are upward facing, and building a base coat that way, and not worrying about getting the paint everywhere. And everywhere that doesn't get hit with your brush will still have that nice, interesting shadow color, so it won't look unpainted or unfinished. And you don't have to worry about painting a blue cloak over a magenta colored shadow underneath. They kind of just slowly meld together. It's not something that's going to make such a big impact that it's going to impact all of your base colors later. When I'm painting miniatures for fun, I don't want it to feel like I'm playing Operation like when I was a kid, where I have to get my little brush up underneath into these certain little tiny spots and not touch any of the other parts of the model next to it to get that one little dot of blue. I'm just not doing that. I use the same paint consistency through the entire painting process. I mix in just a little bit of water to the paint, just enough so it flows smoothly, but not a drop more. I don't want to have to go over an area multiple times to get a nice opaque coat. Ideally, the only time you repaint any section of the model is when you come back in with a brighter color to add a highlight or two. And speaking of highlights, because we've banked up a bunch of time with our quick shadows and not doing all over base coats, we now can spend our time on what really matters, and that is really building interest and vibrancy through a couple of highlights. I like to use vibrant colors for highlights instead of just mixing white into the base color. Again, this is making the most impact with the fewest amount of brush strokes. When it comes to where to put the highlights, I keep it pretty simple. I want to have fun, not overthink anything. The closer the surface is to the head and shoulders of the model, the more highlights there should be. So, boots, pants, 0 highlights. Face, 3, maybe 4 highlights. Everything else, 1 or 2. You ever paint a model and the little tiny fiddly details you don't know what they are? Is that fur? A belt? Chains? Is that his wiener? If you have to ask yourself that question, it's not worth worrying over. Grab the paint you were already using for pouches or whatever other generic detail and just put some color on it. If you were to try to calculate how much time we as painters stare at our models to try to determine what tiny detail that's supposed to be, and then figure out which unique color I should spend painting that thing to be, it's pretty embarrassing, really. No one looks at those little details, not even you once the model is done, so paint it something and move along. Today's video is brought to us by Cephalofair Games, creators of one of my favorite games of all time, Gloomhaven. My friends and I have put in well over 100 hours into our Gloomhaven campaign, and we are super pumped to start up Frosthaven soon. So whether you've tried their games or not, they've got something you're going to love going on over at their current crowdfunded campaign on BackerKit. You can pick up their brand new miniatures range, which includes the ones I'm painting today, as well as 598 more. If math serves, that's about 50 cents a mini for these 600 plus minis that can be used in Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, and their new upcoming Gloomhaven RPG. That RPG is launching in the same campaign, which is super exciting because even the original Gloomhaven board game is filled with such a unique world and story. You just feel like you're getting enveloped in what's happening. I just can't wait to run a campaign in their very own RPG system. The campaign also includes version 2.0 of the original Gloomhaven, so it's even more tightened, tweaked, and has more content than ever before. So you no longer have an excuse not to try one of the best board games ever created. You can also pick up Frosthaven if you don't own that one yet, as well as some great bundle deals if you want to get more than one of these products in one go. So make sure you check out the link down in the video description of the current campaign on BackerKit before it's gone and you miss out on these great Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, Gloomhaven RPG, and Gloomhaven miniatures deals. One thing that's both sped up my painting and created more cohesive color schemes is limiting myself to just 3 or 4 main colors on any individual model. Now I will build up highlights on those colors, oftentimes with a brighter sky blue or lime green, for example. But those main base colors, I'm just using 3 or 4. For everything that isn't these colors, I use various shades of browns and grays, and I almost never use a specific brown or gray or whatever neutral color in these smaller details. Just grab whatever color is already on your palette. Mix in some black, maybe a little bit of yellow, white, orange, literally whatever is on your palette, and wham, you have a unique neutral color that you can use to base coat the boots or the bracers or the belt, whatever. By doing this, you're actually teaching yourself how to mix paints and to determine what colors I need to add based on what I want to make in my brain. You also spend a lot less time digging through your paints in a cabinet or on your shelf to find that perfect gray or brown. Where the fun really comes in painting in this way is I get to relax. I'm not worried about blending the paint. I'm not worried about advanced miniature painting techniques, and I'm certainly not worried about making the paint job perfect. When I'm painting in this style, I'm often watching YouTube videos, listening to a podcast, or hanging out on Twitch streams, because this doesn't require all of my focus or attention. Will these be the best miniatures I've ever painted? No. Does that bother me? No. But if I do this a couple of evenings a week, they will be better than the ones that I did last month or the month before that. And I didn't need to stress myself out in leveling up my painting. I'm just painting, and the leveling up will happen organically. And really, don't tell anyone, but that is my nefarious plot for this entire video. Just paint. Paint in any way that you find fun. Paint in a way that brings you back to the table to do the next one. Paint in a way that helps you de-stress for an hour in the evening. Paint in a way that transports you to the magical place where this figure lives, and that you are the one bringing it to life through pigment. If you just paint, you create a routine. If you create a routine, you build the momentum of feeling like you're working towards something greater than just one model. You don't even need to know what you're working towards exactly, what that's connected to in your hobby or the games that you play. Also, you get the benefit of improving your mental health just thrown in for free. Today, did we discuss a revolutionary painting system that will change the way you approach the hobby forever? No. But I actually don't believe that giving you a proverbial fish will actually make you paint more anyways. This is just what I do when I'm pumped to play a game with some friends and I want to chill out and get these 5 minis done in about 4 hours. And this Saturday, I'll get to do just that. Play a game with my friends with these models. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I have a legit question for you, and I would love it if you would take a second and put your answers down in the comments. How long has it been since you painted your last mini? Maybe it was an hour ago, maybe you've never painted one. I truly want to know. Regardless of your answer, I appreciate that you spend some time hanging out with me in these videos. Whatever version of your hobby you choose to engage with is great, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. If you support me by watching the videos and subscribing to the channel, thank you. If you support me by picking up a Ninja shirt, thank you. And if you support me by being a member of my Patreon so I can keep making these videos about the hobby that I love, thank you. I'm going to see you back here again real soon. And sometime between now and then, make sure you find time in your day to slay the gray.